We start with the session 2. Albert Einstein said the only source of knowledge is experience. Hence, by sharing experience, we increase knowledge, and that's what we intend to do here with 3 eminent speakers sharing their experience on digital adoption. Welcome to the session 2, Global Experiences of Digital Adoption. We have 2 chairpersons for this session. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Amit Mookim, Managing Director, IQVIA South Asia. Amit has been a management consultant turned into a business leader and currently oversees the India operations at IQVIA. His experience in digital health has extended to supporting innovation and entrepreneurship in India. An advisor to the NHA on innovation, president at Indus Entrepreneurs Mumbai, and mentor to health startups. As a young bright partner, Amit worked extensively towards growth of his earlier firm KPMG, spreading its base across 11 countries. Those who don't know, Amit is an amateur marathon runner and also coaches entrepreneurs on managing stress while being centered in spirituality. Welcome. Our second chairperson is Dr. Anil Chillimuntha. He's the Vice President of Meta's Group of Adventist Hospitals and has a vast experience of more than 2 decades in healthcare and has been serving as NABH assessor since last 12 years. Also the Vice President of Surat Hospital Association, member of Action Committee for COVID Management for South Gujarat, and Professor and Head Department of Business Administration, Surat, an alumnus of IMA Ahmedabad and Manipal University, with many publishing books, research articles, both in national and international journals. I now introduce our 3 speakers for today's session. First is Mr. Ramesh Raskar, Associate Professor and Head, MIT Media Lab, USA. His focus is on AI and imaging for health and sustainability. These interfaces span research in physical, digital, and global domains. Recipient of Lemelson Award, ACM SICK Graph Achievement Award, DARPA Young Faculty Award, and many more. He has worked on several research projects at Google, Apple, Facebook, and co-founded, advised many companies. I welcome you all, and now I hand over the session to the chair to take it ahead.
Thank you, Bhavisha, and a very good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all our global audience. And first of all, on behalf of IQVIA as well as my co-chair, Dr. Anil, who I'll hand over very quickly, thank you for having us on this panel. And thank you to the panelists from across the world who will give us a perspective. I mean, and I'm sure that it's going to be a very, very exciting panel, especially given the dynamic situation and time that we are in, where we don't even know 3 months down the line what would be some of the dynamics in the healthcare ecosystem. And hence, this panel is very, very timely.
Crowdsource epidemiology and what that means for privacy. If we can encourage individuals to contribute data in this pandemic, this participatory mechanism may just be able to allow us to overcome this pandemic. And when we think about participatory, we think about technology companies like Google or Facebook, and they have one clean business model, which is crowdsource data and analyze it and serve back their customers. And to achieve that, they have to encourage all their participants, all their customers to share their data and get benefits. If you use Google Maps as an example, we see the reds and the greens on the traffic because all of us are willingly giving away, our data. So, and that immediately gets us into these 4 issues of privacy, ease of sharing, tangible benefits, and are we getting some fidelity, some accuracy, impartiality out of it? So if you think about this trade-off between data utility and data privacy, on the top left, we have Google Maps, where we willingly give away our location data, and in return, we get great benefits. For example, we can see traffic. But when it comes to health data, data remains siloed, and it's very difficult to use that in a meaningful way. So the question is, can we move to the top right and get utility and privacy at the same time, as is shown here in the green circle. Now, you might say, hey, why not just anonymize the data and that should be enough? Well, that doesn't work. Those of you who use Strava for outdoor activities, Strava releases a heat map that's anonymized and aggregated across all the Strava users. But as you can see in this picture, in Taiwan, the employees of sensitive nuclear facilities, nuclear power facilities, can be traced from the nuclear energy plants to their houses, because Strava releases their trails beautifully from the sensitive locations to their houses. So even anonymization aggregation is not enough if there are any kind of outliers. Now we're hearing about the word privacy quite a bit. And let me give you kind of a 2-minute tutorial on what privacy really means. If you look at the left image here, then the point I really want to make here is that privacy is not just for an individual. When we say, hey, Facebook or Twitter is invading my privacy, that's kind of the bottom left. But organizations really care, and Ridhiman made this point really well, which when organizations want to exchange data with each other, they run into regulations or trade secrets. So they're very worried about data breach or a rogue employee and so on. And when nations have to deal with it, when the US government demands that France should release the data of all the people who get on an Air France flight from Paris to JFK, the French start complaining about it. And so it's also a national security issue. So privacy is not just an individual, but it's organization and nation scale as well. So that's how we think about the scale problem of it. It's not about an individual, okay? The second part of this is, what does it mean to talk about privacy of the data? Are we protecting the identity of the individual who is sharing the data, or are we protecting the data itself, right? And this gets very confusing. In the old days, it was good enough to just protect the identity. But today, with overlapping data sets, we can actually figure out many other things. So that's on the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, will this data be seen by humans, or will it also be seen by machines? If you remember the controversy, at some point, Gmail said that, oh, your data is private. Nevertheless, some people, some employees of Google can actually read your email. And that became very problematic. Now, as Ridhiman really said, and also our other speakers, on the bottom left of the diagram is confidentiality. So when we think about health data today, it's seen by a lot of other human beings in its raw form, without even protecting your identity. That's kind of HIPAA, to some extent, GDPR and so on. So that's not privacy at all. That's just confidentiality. When you go to the next level, then you have pseudo-anonymity, which is I'm going to assign a random fixed number, random persistent number to an individual, and I'm just going to track you across the system. And this is what we see in terms of cookies, or the user ID on iPhone or Android and so on. A slightly better version is anonymity, which means at every instant, I'm going to give you a completely new random number that's not persistent. And this rotating random number is enough for me to provide you services. And this is how HTTPS works. But the type of privacy we really care about is what we at MIT call no peek, which means that you cannot reconstruct your identity. You cannot reconstruct your data. It cannot be seen by other humans. It cannot be seen by machines, even by the machines of the company that's providing service. Now, I'm not an Apple fanboy, but Apple kind of gets in this greenish circle that I'm showing you on the top right. And the bluish circle is almost every other technology company that says, just trust us, give us your data, we'll do the right thing. But that's not privacy, that's just data protection. So the reason why this is so important is not just because privacy is a human right and we should really care about it, but also affects how we can achieve social good in the world. Because when private data is embedded anywhere, it immediately creates data silos. Organizations stop exchanging data with each other because of all the things we see on the left side. When there's data silos, efficiencies goes down. And when the efficiencies goes down, clearly cost goes up. And when cost goes up, these solutions are deployed only for the rich, where it can be monetized, and the solution is going to be deployed for the masses, especially in low and middle income countries. So privacy is not just about your privacy on Twitter or Facebook, but impacts organizations and nations, and has all these ripple effects on efficiency, cost, and whether it can serve the underprivileged. So what we need is mathematical mechanisms to achieve privacy so that nobody has to deal with it and still get all the services that you really care about. So with that tutorial, let me move on to what it means to think about privacy in this pandemic. So again, going back to the privacy versus utility axis, you saw on the bottom left, anonymization and aggregation is no privacy at all. Strava is a good example of that. Some additional levels of privacy you can introduce are through obfuscation, using techniques like differential privacy, or techniques for smashing, using federated learning, or the research we do at MIT called split learning, or using techniques like homomorphic encryption. The problem with all these methods is that they give you varying levels of utility. So right now, split learning and federated learning are kind of winning the battle because they give you sufficiently good privacy, but also give you really great utility for analytics and AI. Okay, so when we talk about crowdsourcing and surveying, how are we doing on our rate card? Remember, there are 4 things in our rate card: privacy, ease of use, tangible benefits, and fidelity. With Google Maps, actually, we do pretty well, right? Except maybe for the privacy. With health data, actually, we do very poorly. Not only we don't have any guarantee of privacies, it's not easy to use, there are no tangible benefits, and the outcome of that is also, debatable. So this is a really sad scenario because health is such an important, part of our lives, but we are not able to solve these issues. So to give 2 concrete examples of exposure notification apps and for vaccination, as we know, in fact, Ridhiman was the first person I called when I thought about this project in last February, so more than a year ago now. And then Ridhiman said, let's do this, because he's passionate about computational privacy. And so he's deployed a team and we got going. And after that, we launched CAHOTECH Foundation, raised millions of dollars, and have this app running in 5 US states and territories, as well as in Cyprus. So we're very proud of this whole team that has come together to launch this solution. The next challenge is about vaccination. So vaccination has these 4 main challenges: eligibility scheduling, dosing, which is 2-dose adherence, entry permits or health passports, and how to report health outcomes, which is monitoring adverse side effects. And there are existing centralized systems that are out there. How can we augment them while maintaining privacy? So I won't go into the details, but we think that we can serve the underprivileged by just using paper cards. These are work with IDEO and MIT and CAHOTECH Foundation. And we think that users can have a journey for eligibility, scheduling, health status, and so on by simply collecting QR codes that are tamper evident. And the cryptographic algorithms behind that are beautifully designed by many of our team members. Some of them are on the call here, like Victor Pamplona, Antonio Rose, and others. Now, the way to think about vaccination now is that on the right, we should have options for the user. Either they have paper cards, like I just showed you, designed by IDEO. They might use SMS, or they might use the app from CAHOTECH called Boost 19. Users have many options. The health systems or venues that are going to verify you have been vaccinated or not, or whether what kind of second dose you should get or not, use a Veriscan app, which is open source, released by CAHOTECH. And that talks to the central systems like immunization, information systems, the WARE systems, and so on. So that's kind of the mental map. And how can we achieve this in a privacy preserving way? And then finally, if we again go back to our rate card, exposure notification is great, but the challenge with exposure notification is it did not solve the 3rd row really well, the tangible benefits. The benefits of using an exposure notification app are almost always for somebody else. That is, if the user is infected, they can warn somebody else. But without a very wide adoption, we have not been able to tell a good story of tangible benefits. Nevertheless, it's a very important technology. With vaccination, however, we might be able to do better because we can achieve great privacy, ease of use, definitely tangible benefits, and also improve the fidelity to some extent. The challenge, of course, is, vaccines are only 70, 80% effective. So, that's why I didn't say 100% fidelity as you would get, say, from Google Maps and traffic. So to conclude, very proud of the work that CAHOTECH Foundation and the Institute here is doing. And we have two simple goals. How do you reduce the burden on public health by empowering citizens to take an active role in their health journey? Just the same way citizens, when they're driving, take an active role in contributing the GPS data so the system overall can see where the traffic is. And second is, how do we leverage this data provided by citizens for automation, predictive analytics, and real-time insights into public health programs? And to make sure that this is a participatory system where citizens themselves are taking an active role, we must support privacy, ease of use, tangible benefits, and fidelity. Thank you.
Mr. Ramesh Raskar, it's a very wonderful presentation that you have done. We feel that the work that you're doing at the MIT labs is bringing huge benefit for the society for which you all are working for. I'm sure with CAHOTECH Foundation, you will achieve greater work and good leverage for the benefit of the community at large. Thank you for that.